Hello guys. Today we'll try to complete the blockchain. We'll give you all of the overview. We'll talk about identity, transactions, ledger, and consensus, and how to mine, and what are the benefits of mining, and all other stuff about blockchain. Let's start. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
I'll give you a quick revision. Last time we discussed like what is cryptocurrency, what is blockchain. We talked about its definition. So just now I'll just read it out. I hope that you all will remember like what we talked in previous lectures. Cryptocurrency is a form of currency that's stored completely digitally and isn't issued by a central authority, made secure with cryptography, distributed consensus, and economic incentive alignment. We'll talk about consensus and other stuff later on in this section. Now, example of cryptocurrency is Bitcoin. So now, talking to blockchain, blockchain is a data structure which is used to represent a cryptocurrency. Like it stores data in a way that allows multiple parties to access it reliably without having to trust one another. Like this can come under decentralization. We'll talk about it later on. Some fun facts about blockchain, Bitcoin. Before getting started, we'll uh, to get you interested in Bitcoin. I'll tell you some fun facts. These are like it is said that 1.1 million Bitcoin is held by its anonymous creator Satoshi Nakamoto. So like the creator of Bitcoin is not yet known. The identity of the creator is not known, but a paper he published in which he wrote like created by Satoshi Nakamoto. So like we know only by this alias. Just a minute. So also only 21 million Bitcoin can ever be produced, out of which only 19 million have been already mined. Like to be precise, like as of last month, I guess 18.8 million Bitcoin have been already mined. This is given an overall figure. Also, like you will laugh on this maybe, but like on May 2022, 2010, a person named Laszlo paid 10,000 bitcoins for two pizzas worth only $41 at that time. लाइक आज हम देखें 10,000 बिटकॉइन कितना रहेगा तो अराउंड 47 अरब रुपए जितना हो जाएगा. मतलब बहुत ज्यादा हो गया. उतना अगर उसको स्टोर किया रहता तो फिर तो बहुत सही हो जाता. Now let's talk about some characteristics of blockchain. First of all, decentralized control, like communal consensus rather than party's decision dictates who gets to access or update the blockchain. Like decentralization में क्या रहता है? Unlike centralization की बैंक हो गया कि सब डेटा हर एक सिर्फ एक सेंट्रल अथॉरिटी के पास रहेगा. डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन में क्या रहता है कि रादर देन सेंट्रल अथॉरिटी पूरा एक ग्रुप रहता है और वो ग्रुप सारे के सारे ट्रांजेक्शन और सारा स्टफ वैलिडेट करता है और फिर सब होता है. उसके बारे में आगे डिटेल में बात करते हैं. Uh, आगे है tamper evidence, like it's immediately obvious if data stored on the blockchain has been tampered with. Again like decentralization, अगर किसी ने कुछ टैम्पर किया तो बाकी हर बंदे को पता चल जाएगा कुछ टैम्परिंग हुई है, कुछ हुआ है. तो टैम्पर नहीं होगा, कुछ फ्लॉज होने के चांस बहुत कम होते हैं. ऑल्सो Nakamoto consensus. This is a very like important topic. We'll talk about it later on. But one has to probably spend resources when updating the blockchain. Next, we'll talk about centralization. What is centralization? Centralization means authorization handled by a single party and data is stored by a single party. We can take example of banks. Like we all have account in our banks. Suppose HDFC Bank we talk about. Like everyone has like everyone's saying मेरा account is HDFC Bank में है. तो मेरा आईडी पासवर्ड सब HDFC बैंक का जो सेंट्रल अथॉरिटी है उसको पता रहेगा और किसी को नहीं पता रहेगा. एंड मेरी सारी डिटेल्स उनके पास रहेंगी, सब कुछ सारे मेरा सब कुछ और डिटेल्स पर्सन को सब बैंक के पास रहेगा रादर देन पब्लिक में कुछ नहीं रहेगा. दिस इज सेंट्रलाइजेशन. एग्जांपल्स तुम देख सकते हो, क्लाइंट सर्वर नेटवर्किंग हो गया, हायरार्किकल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन चार्ट हो गया, पॉलिटिकल डायनेस्टी हो गया, बैंक हो गया, ये सब एग्जांपल्स हो गए। इसके कुछ प्रोज भी हैं और कॉन्स भी हैं, लाइक एवरी कॉइन हैज टू साइड्स। तो इसमें क्या रहता है, एफिशिएंसी, लाइक ओनली वन अथॉरिटी इज हैंडलिंग एवरीथिंग, सो everything will be fast enough, transactions will be fast, updates will be fast. Second pro is like updates need to be stamp of updates need only one stamp of approval and can be force pushed to users. Like सिर्फ सेंट्रल अथॉरिटी है तो एक बंदा बोले कि हाँ अपडेट करना है, तो सब बंदों के पास हो जाएगा और सब कुछ क्विक क्विक होएगा। बट इसमें क्या रहेगा, कॉन्स क्या है, लैक ऑफ सोवरेनिटी, a central party may choose to use your data arbitrarily, and second con is any hack, attack or failure only has to happen in one place. लाइक इसमें सपोज हैक हुआ, सिस्टम हैक, फेसबुक का कुछ हुआ था, अभी सर्वर का इशू हुआ था, फेसबुक इंस्टाग्राम सब कुछ बंद हो गया था, तो एक ही जगह पे वो कुछ दिक्कत हुई थी उनको और सब कुछ डाउन हो गया था। सेंट्रलाइजेशन में दिक्कत हुई थी, कोई एक ही जगह पे कुछ अटैक हुआ तो सब कुछ डाउन हो सकता है, बहुत रिस्क हो सकता है। नाउ लेट्स टॉक अबाउट डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन। Authorization according to an openly known protocol. Data is stored by the participants. As I talked earlier, like Bitcoin में decentralization ज़्यादा चलता है, मतलब वही चलता है। तो authorization according to an openly known protocol. सब लोग, suppose five friends are there and they have some transaction is going on. They all will validate the transaction and उसके हिसाब से transaction को pass किया जाएगा। Like this sort of, yeah, data is stored by the participants. You can think of peer-to-peer networking. Peer-to-peer networking, Gaurav will talk about that. Peer to उसका डिटेल में सब कुछ बताएंगे। पीयर टू पीयर नेटवर्किंग के ऊपर भी हम डिटेल में सब कुछ बताएंगे। एंड एक डेमोक्रेसी होगी, प्योर डेमोक्रेसी, जहाँ पे सब लोग वोट करके यू सिलेक्ट समवन, दैट इज फॉर डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन, दैट कैन कम अंडर डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन। Also barter economy. Barter मतलब like in earlier days what used to happen, like पैसे में ट्रांजेक्शन नहीं होता था, यू गिव समथिंग समवन एंड समवन विल गिव यू व्हाट यू नीड इन रिटर्न ऑफ दैट। लाइक पुराने जमाने में तुम किसी को कुछ खाना दे दो या फिर कुछ खेत में से कुछ निकाल के गेहूं दे दो, तो तुमको बदले में शायद कहीं एक जगह से दूसरे गाँव में पहुंचा दे। ये बहुत पुरानी बात है, लाइक बार्टर होता था उस टाइम पे, तो दैट कैन बी थॉट ऑफ डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन। ऑल्सो कम्युनिटी, यस कम्युनिटी, लाइक कम्युनिटी में तुम कोई भी चीज करते हो तो सबको दिखता है वो चीज और कंप्लीट ट्रांसपेरेंसी रहती है, तो दैट कैन कम अंडर डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन। इसके भी कुछ प्रोज एंड कॉन्स हैं, लाइक एकदम उल्टा रहेगा सेंट्रलाइजेशन से, इसमें सोवरेनिटी प्रो में आ गया क्योंकि यू नो एग्जैक्टली हाउ डेटा विल बी यूज्ड, और फॉल्ट टॉलरेंस, the whole network has to be taken down rather than a single party. Like I talked में centralization, आपको कहीं एक ही जगह अटैक करना पड़ेगा, इसमें आपको हर एक सिस्टम में, हर एक डिवाइस में छेड़छाड़ करनी पड़ेगी, तब जाके पूरा डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन कम्युनिटी नीचे डाउन आएगी। क्योंकि सपोज इफ there is a group of five people and five systems and one system is taken down, the rest four can handle the लाइक दैट। बट इसमें कौन क्या हो गया, इनएफिशिएंसी, अपडेट्स पुश करने में दिक्कत रहेगी, डेटा इज डुप्लीकेटेड एंड प्रोग्राम्स आर री-एग्जीक्यूटेड अक्रॉस द नेटवर्क एंड डिफिकल्ट अपडेट्स मस्ट बी डेलिबरेटली अडॉप्टेड बाय पार्टिसिपेंट्स इन द नेटवर्क। इसमें क्या होएगा कि बहुत सारे लोग हैं तो मल्टीपल डेटा रिडंडेंसी बढ़ जाएगी, बार बार सेम डेटा, कभी कभी हो सकता है कि वही चल रहा है, एक ही डेटा बार बार चले जा रहा है और ट्रांजेक्शन स्लो हो सकता है। और दूसरा डिफिकल्टी इन अपडेट्स, हर बंदे को अप्रूव करना पड़ेगा अपडेट का और उसमें डिफिकल्ट हो सकती है, टाइम कंज्यूमिंग हो सकता है। Now we'll talk about what is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is like in general a cryptocurrency created by Satoshi Nakamoto in 2008. Again, Satoshi Nakamoto is an alias. We don't know who actual Satoshi Nakamoto is. The original use of a data structure now known as blockchain, purely digital and not controlled by any central entity. कोई central authority नहीं है, जैसे कि डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन में बात की, बिटकॉइन में डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन चलता है, नॉट सेंट्रलाइजेशन। Also, it is motivated by cypherpunk movement, a fight for privacy and self-governance using cryptography. So cypherpunk में आप देखोगे तो क्या रहता था कि it was a movement for privacy। यहीं से बिटकॉइन का आइडिया आया कि why not eliminate the middleman or any other like bank so has who has to validate the transactions, other than we can put our transactions in open community and everyone can validate what's going on. Now, let's see that why do we trust in banks, and We trust in banks with some very sensitive services like transferring and redeeming money, accurately recording account history, storing your personal information. Like मैंने बताया कि ट्रांसफर और रिडीम आप करते हो बैंक से, तो आप एनईएफटी, आरटीजीएस, आईएमपीएस जो भी करते हो सब बैंक के भरोसे करते हो कि हाँ हम कर रहे हैं, बैंक ट्रांसफर कर देगा। दूसरा, जब भी आप अकाउंट स्टेटमेंट निकालते हो अपना बैंक में, तो हम चेक नहीं करते कि यार कुछ बैंक ने कुछ फ्लॉ कर दिया, कुछ मिटा विटा दिया। बैंक ने कुछ फ्लॉ तो नहीं कर दिया, कुछ ट्रांजेक्शन मिटा तो नहीं दिया, हम ऐसे चेक नहीं कर पाते। तो हम कंप्लीटली ब्लाइंडली ट्रस्ट कर देते हैं उस पर। और जैसे मैंने पहले बताया, पूरा इंफॉर्मेशन हमारा बैंक के पास होता है। सो सॉरी फॉर दिस। पूरा पर्सनल इन्फॉर्मेशन, लाइक वेन एवर यू गो टू ओपन एन अकाउंट इन बैंक, आपको अपना आधार कार्ड और सब केवाईसी डिटेल्स दिखानी पड़ती है। लाइक पर्सनल इन्फॉर्मेशन सब होती है बैंक के पास। अब इसमें फ्लॉज क्या है बैंक के? अभी तो नहीं है ऐसा, बट पहले क्या हुआ करता था कि दे यूज टू चार्ज मनी फॉर ट्रांजेक्शन विच टेक्स प्लेस, लाइक आईएमपीएस, एनईएफटी, आरटीजीएस में पैसे लगते थे पैसे ट्रांसफर करने के लिए। इफ आई वांट टू सेंड गौरव सपोज 10,000 रुपीज, देन आई हैव टू पे सम चार्जेस फॉर दैट। ऑल्सो नॉट एवरीवन कैन सी द ट्रांजेक्शंस गोइंग ऑन। अगेन सेंट्रलाइजेशन का आ गया इसमें, सेंट्रलाइज है पूरा, सेंट्रल अथॉरिटी से कंट्रोल कर रही है, तो हर कोई नहीं देख सकता है क्या ट्रांजेक्शन हो रहा है। सिर्फ बैंक का जो हेड है या फिर सेंट्रल अथॉरिटी वही देख सकती है सब ट्रांजेक्शन। दूसरा, समटाइम्स देयर अनरिलायबल एंड स्कैम्स हैपन। वी हैव सीन मेनी बैंक्स फॉल एंड मेनी स्कैम्स हैपन। एवरीवन नोज अबाउट नीरव मोदी, विजय माल्या। बैंक में दिक्कतें होती हैं। तो क्या कर सकते हैं इसके लिए? What can be done to make a decentralized alternative banking system? So we'll talk about it. So the components of Bitcoin are, we'll talk about all these four components: identity, transactions, distributed ledger, and consensus in today's lecture. So talking about identity, what makes an identity yours? Like your name is your identity. Your Aadhaar card, you can prove your identity. But currency में क्या रहता है? क्रिप्टो करेंसी की अगर हम बात करें, तो रिसीविंग एंड व्हाट इज द रोल ऑफ आइडेंटिटी इन कंटेक्स्ट ऑफ करेंसीज? रिसीविंग मनी, क्लेमिंग एंड स्पेंडिंग मनी, एंड ब्लेम। रिसीव मनी मतलब पैसा आएगा ऑब्वियसली। क्लेमिंग एंड स्पेंडिंग मतलब तुम किसी को ट्रांसफर कर रहे हो, तो उसका आइडेंटिटी चाहिए तुमको, किसको ट्रांसफर करना है। ब्लेम इज लाइक हु फ्रॉम हुम डू यू वांट टू ट्रांसफर, और हु इज ट्रांसफरिंग, वो ब्लेम आ गया। फिर identity in daily life. Houses have addresses and mailbox keys. Emails have aliases and passwords. Bitcoin has public keys and private keys. So we'll talk about public keys and private keys later on. Identity at the bank. Now suppose you go to a bank. So bank will ask whenever you want to open an account, name बताओ, birth date बताओ, address बताओ, आधार कार्ड बताओ, और बहुत कुछ पूछता है वो। So that is identity at the bank. So और बैंक आपको यूनिक यूजर नेम देगा, अकाउंट नंबर देगा। That will be your identity at the bank. Uh, अगला, let's talk about public keys and private keys. So each identity is represented with a unique public key, and a corresponding private key acts as a key to unlock the public key and your money. इसको सिंपली समझने के लिए क्या कर सकते हैं कि सपोज पोस्टमैन आया and you have a mailbox outside your house. So he'll throw the post inside the mailbox, and not everyone can access it. Only the postman can throw the mail in the inside the mailbox, and only you have the key to open the mailbox and see what mail has come. सिमिलरली ब्लॉकचेन में क्या होता है कि एक पब्लिक की रहती है, जहाँ पे सपोज आई वांट टू आस्क मनी फ्रॉम गौरव, आई वांट टू आस्क 2 बिटकॉइंस फ्रॉम गौरव, देन ही विल सेंड मी 2 बिटकॉइंस ऑन माय पब्लिक की, एंड मैं अपनी प्राइवेट की से उसको रिडीम कर सकता हूँ। नीचे ये लिखा है, यूनिक प्राइवेट की जनरेटेड रैंडमली एंड पब्लिक की derived from private key. Public key for receiving and private key for redeeming. Both public key and private key are unique, and you should never share your private key with anyone. And public keys, just like account numbers of the bank, you can get bitcoins transferred or to your public key. Again, like these are some technical terms. Public key की security कैसे होती है? So Bitcoin is hidden in large amount of public keys, like nearly 2 raised to power 160 possible addresses are there of public keys. So it is practically impossible for any two to overlap using random generation of public keys. Like ऐसा बहुत कम चांस होगा कि मेरा और किसी और बंदे का पब्लिक की सेम रहेगा, ऐसा चांसेस बहुत कम है। और अभी एज ऑफ नाउ, लाइक लास्ट मंथ, 7.9 बिलियन है अपने वर्ल्ड की पॉपुलेशन, तो every person could have about 2 raised to power 126 addresses all to themselves. मतलब 2 raised to power 126 उसकी पास पब्लिक की हो सकती है और इतना अकाउंट्स बना सकता है वो बिटकॉइन के इंडिविजुअली। मतलब चांसेस बहुत कम है कि मेरा और किसी और का पब्लिक की सेम रहेगा। नाउ ट्रांजेक्शन की बात करते हैं। इसमें आता है यूटीएक्सओ मॉडल, अनस्पेंड ट्रांजैक्शन आउटपुट। So each account holds a set of unspent transaction outputs, quantities of Bitcoin sent to this account that have not been redeemed yet. UTXO may contain any quantity of Bitcoin and is spent in its entirety. UTXO can only be redeemed once. So UTXO क्या होता है? You can consider it as the piggy bank of Bitcoins. Like suppose I have 10 Bitcoins, I want to send Gaurav 2 Bitcoins. Then I'll have to break the whole piggy bank in order to send 2 Bitcoins. अब suppose मैंने piggy bank तोड़ दिया, 2 Bitcoin उसको भेज दिए. I can create a new piggy bank, new UTXO, and put my remaining 8 bitcoins back in it. And सिमिलरली गौरव को भी ऐसा ही होएगा। नया जब उसको पहुंचेगा वहां पे, तो उसके उसके पिगी बैंक में जाएगा पैसा, एंड व्हेनेवर ही हैव टू रिडीम इट और ही हैज टू स्पेंड इट, then he'll have to break the UTXO. He'll have to spend or redeem it and again create a new UTXO for the remaining amount of Bitcoin. And UTXO can be redeemed only once, because once you redeem, they break, and then you can create another UTXO. There is no limit on creating UTXO. You can create multiple UTXOs. Now example दे रखा है कि गौरव के पास 4.2 बिटकॉइन है, और I said that hey Gaurav, you still owe me 2 bitcoins for that G wagon last week. Like मैं गौरव को बोला 2 बिटकॉइन इज लाइक नियरली 90 लाख रुपए हो गए, तो ऐसा तो बोलूंगा नहीं कि बर्गर के लिए है, बोलूंगा कि जी वैगन के लिए, मैंने तो जी वैगन लेके दी थी, मेरे को 2 बिटकॉइन तुम दिए नहीं, तो बिटकॉइन दे मेरे को। तो हिल सेंड मी 3 बिटकॉइंस, एंड उसके पास रिमेनिंग बचे 1.2 बिटकॉइन। So he'll first of all break his UTXOs. He'll send me 3 bitcoins, and the remaining bitcoin he has, he'll create a new UTXO and store the remaining bitcoins in his new UTXO. So this is it. Like, if you have any doubts, you can ask. Otherwise, Gaurav will continue.
Thank you, Parth. So any doubts till now?
कोई भी डाउट्स हो तो पूछ लो, नहीं समझा हो, कुछ पास हुआ हो तो वापस बता दूंगा।
Okay, I'll. Is it visible now?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so let's discuss what distributed ledger is. Like identity, it is also a part of how Bitcoin functions. So let's see what is a record keeping. What basically is distributed ledger. So suppose, for example, Parth wants to send me, Gaurav, 3,000 rupees. He'll ask bank to transfer the 3,000 rupees from his bank account to my bank account. So bank will first verify that if Parth has 3,000 rupees in his bank account, and if Parth has the money, then it will look, the bank will look and verify Gaurav's बैंक अकाउंट। लाइक ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि गौरव है तो किसी और के बैंक कोई दूसरे गौरव के बैंक अकाउंट में द मनी इज ट्रांसफर्ड। so it will verify and validate that this is the bank account Parth intends to send the money to. So during this transaction, bank will take security measures to avoid any cyber theft or like any kind of failure. Let's suppose bank के server side में कोई issue आ गया or somebody tried to intermediate and say कि नहीं गौरव तो मैं हूँ मुझे चाहिए मतलब this money is for me. So the bank will try its best to avoid this. So then bank will validate this transaction by writing the transaction in its database, in its ledger, and then store it in its database. So after this transaction is complete, like verified, bank has seen that it went to the original Gaurav, and it will write in its ledger that this transaction has been done. So for this, bank will deduce some money as discussed, as told by Parth. So now we can see that there is not really a need for this middleman, and we can just create a channel between Parth and me. So we can directly create a channel here, and we can send the money uh, directly between us. We don't need no one to interfere. But there arises issues like, do we trust each other? Do I know? Do Parth knows Gaurav? So that's all. Uh, okay, so what we can do, if let's suppose any of us can come with a technology that's actually preferable, um like for in this case blockchain. So what blockchain does this for us कि जो ये जो trust का issue है वो solve कर देता है. So let's see how record keeping works in blockchain. So in blockchain model, we use distributed ledger to keep the records. Let's take an example. Parth, I, Shubham, and Sudeep go to dinner every Sunday night as our tradition. So हम हर Sunday खाना खाने जाते हैं रात को, and so and we decided, we know that it's really unneeded to divide the bill after having the dinner and pay then and there. So instead, like, what I meant by this is कि अगर समझो आज 100 rupees हुआ, so we won't be like 220 मतलब we won't be dividing 25 to the 25 to the. Instead what we'll do is that we'll ask Part to keep a record, and we'll say कि कोई एक पे करो आज, and next Sunday somebody else can pay the whole amount. So we do this for a month or 3 months or 6 months or even a year, and after a year what we do is that, according to the ledger, we decide to divide and distribute the money evenly to the respective people. But then we realize that, let's suppose Shubham and I are like, Shubham, have you noticed that Parth might be paying less than the actual amount because he owns the ledger? So what so Shubham thinks, yeah, that might be possible. So what we decide to do is that during every transaction we do, we keep ledger for ourselves too, instead of just giving it to the path. So हम सब लिखेंगे कि ये transaction हुआ. So basically this is how a distributed ledger is. It is not that, really not that complicated. Okay, so also, so ये transaction तो ठीक है. So you might be wondering like, Gaurav, this distributed ledger and all is understood, but how exactly is a transaction stored? Just like as I said कि एक transaction है वो सब अपने अपने system में store करेंगे. So isn't that inefficient? Like, you might have figured it out that storing every transaction will require everyone to continuously update their ledger. Like even a small transaction like Parts and Gaurav 5 rupees, so everybody would have to agree with that and store it there, it in their ledger. So what happens in real life is there are like hundreds and thousands of transactions occurring every minute or even second. So it is highly improbable and really impossible to store each and every one of them. And even if we fail to store even one of the transactions, then the whole purpose of like the blockchain is lost. Blockchain is intended to secure every transaction. So but it is highly improbable that कि हम एक एक transaction store करें. So what we do is that we bundle a couple of transactions together and call it as a block. So हम let's suppose 3 वीक का कंसिडर कर रहे हैं फॉर इन दिस एग्जांपल. पार्थ ने पहले 100 रुपीज पे किए, शुभम ने 200 नेक्स्ट वीक, एंड आई पेड लाइक 150 next the other week. So we bundle these three transactions together, and we make it as a block. एंड आफ्टर दैट द अदर मतलब जो आने वाले जो 3 वीक्स है उनको भी बंडल करेंगे, एंड देन वी अटैच दिस ब्लॉक्स एज अ चेन, एंड दिस इज basically how we store the transactions. So cool. Let's move on to, by the way, any doubts in this, like how we store the transaction or something? If any, you can ask. You can unmute and ask anytime. So I'll just continue. Okay. So what is this peer-to-peer model we are talking about? Okay, so basically, um, like, so as we discussed earlier, peer-to-peer, like in this case, जो हमने पहले केस में देखा था कि peer-to-peer is this, wait a second. Where is that? Okay, so peer-to-peer is this chain that I intended between Parth and Gaurav without the middle guy. So okay, so what group of devices, nodes means the person, the people. In this case, Parth, Gaurav, me, Parth, me, Shubham, and this guy is a node of this blockchain. This is a blockchain. Collectively store and share files. Here, node refers to each peer, as I said. No central administration, that is, every node has equal powers. You can see no one is in the middle to control any transaction. And also, no charges are taken. So, if Part sends money to Gaurav, there is no one who will like, मैं validate कर रहा हूँ, मेरे को पैसे चाहिए, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. Okay, so what are the advantages of peer-to-peer network? As Parth said, अगर let's suppose बैंक है बीच में, अगर है बैंक का example, okay, let's assume that in center there is a bank, and if if there is a bank, then जो बीच के जो दो intersection lines है, this won't exist and they will just connect to the bank. So what happens कि अगर कोई transaction हो रहा है तो bank will validate that and they are not like हाँ मैंने तेरे को इतनी did you receive that and all. So in that example, let's suppose बैंक का कोई server issue हो जाता है, या let's suppose some transactions are hacked and they went missing. So in that case, ये पता नहीं चलेगा ना कि पार्थ ने गौरव को रियली भेजे थे या कुछ, मतलब ट्रांजैक्शन की वैलिडिटी तो कुछ नहीं है. बट इन केस ऑफ peer to peer network, even if one of the system goes down for some reason, the others have the same transaction and it is already validated that इनके पास जो transaction है वह validated है. So when guy will again bring his system back in the network, this any one of them can send the transaction to him and that will be validated. Also, great security than the traditional network. You might have guessed it now. Also, we don't need any third-party applications for this. Um, you can see from these two images that in a client to server, as I said, this is the bank and all those, and in peer-to-peer, we all are connected. Like you can just visualize this. It's so simple. Cool. So let's move on to consensus. Okay, consensus is the process by which a network's participants come to agreement on some decision to be made. In our case, agreeing or changes to a ledger of transaction. So, in simple words, consensus means agreeing onto something. So, if I send money to Path and others receive the same transaction, and the transaction seems valid and others verify it, then all of the people in the blockchain, that is, let's call them nodes. Let's avoid calling them people. Let's call them nodes. So what will happen? The nodes will come to an agreement of the transaction and will pass this transaction to a block. Like as we discussed, block will contain many transactions. So if the transaction is verified, the nodes will pass them to the block. So also consensus is heavily used in blockchain, and there is no authority. So even um, like consensus is needed. कोई अगर सेंट जैसे बैंक के केस में बैंक तो कर रहा है ना सब, हम उसको विश्वास करें कि बैंक गलत कुछ नहीं करेगा. But in this case, everybody has equal powers. There is no authority. So consensus should be मतलब agreement पे आने चाहिए so सब लोग, वरना the whole point of blockchain goes invalid. Okay. There are a few types of consensus I would like to discuss. That's not mandatory, but this will help you visualize how consensus in blockchain work. So first is a naive case. Let's suppose this is me, Gaurav, and yeah, Shubham sends Parth some money, and I receive the notification. Like I on my blockchain, I receive a notification. Pop-up appears that this transaction has been done. So what will I do? I'll be like, okay, it seems valid. So I'll just say, okay, this is valid, and the others will do the same. So you might have guessed this might be like very wrong to do. इस approach में बहुत कुछ गलत हो सकता है. I'll just show one possibility, that is the double spend attack. So let's suppose Alice has 5 Bitcoin, okay, and this five she wants to send those 5 Bitcoin to Carol as well as the same 5 Bitcoin to Bob. उसके पास 5 ही Bitcoin है, but indirectly she is sending to 10 Bitcoins to like all of both of Carol and Bob. So this is a kind of double spend attack that might occur using this naive consensus. So um, Nakamoto जिसने ये बनाया, he was smart, so he was like, this won't work for blockchain. Okay, cool. Yep, I said this. So we'll be like, okay, so then what? So we can just agree up. We can agree to something like पार्थ ने इसको भेजा है पहले गौरव को 5 बिटकॉइन, तो he can't be sending those same bitcoin to other. तो we'll be like, हाँ इसमें भी कोई problem नहीं हो सकता. This might be the valid approach. So this is how democratic consensus work, but this do have some attack. So if let's suppose Parth sends 5 Bitcoin to me and this guy and Shubham, and he tries to send it again, but three of them denies and only one agrees, then there is loss on his side. But what if Parth be like, okay, I'll bring more three of my nodes. As we discussed earlier, one can have many like accounts, many yeah, Bitcoin accounts. So he can create many nodes and he can gain the majority, and just this is called Sybil attack. So if he gains the majority, this will have to be validated by blockchain because majority of people consent agreed to this transaction. So what we have, what Nakamoto thought is like what we use right now is Nakamoto consensus. So what happens is in Nakamoto consensus, I'll give you an example. Let's suppose there is a dart and a dartboard जो हम फेंकते हैं like darts. So and the dart is like 20 yards away and you are blindfolded. So let's suppose you try to attempt a bullseye on the dart, and you have infinite numbers of darts. So you can just basically that is a brute force approach. So you can assume that there is literally a zero probability of zero or literally negligible probability to achieve that bullseye. So this is what Nakamoto thought. I'll also give you a brief about miners. So as I said कि अगर कोई transaction हो रहा है तो कोई तो validate करेगा ना. तो that guy so what validation is, you समझो ये एक transaction हो गया, ये एक transaction हो गया, तो ये दोनों transaction को एक block बनाएंगे. तो ये block जो बनाएगा और ये block validate करने के लिए हम एक miner रखते हैं. Miner सबको मालूम ही होगा. So what miner does is he uses his computational power. He uses his system, PC, mobiles, like basically मतलब वो resources spend कर रहा है. He uses his light, electricity, is paying for them, etc. So what that means is, if someone is using computational power, that means we can rely on that guy. मतलब वो इतना मेहनत कर रहा है, then he might have spent some money. So what we can do is we can agree with that guy to validate our transaction. So Parth won't be like में चार पांच अगर समझो Parth ने तीन और nodes ऐड कर लिए, तो the probability of hitting that bullseye with one node is like improbable. And so assume if we add more four nodes in that, so Nakamoto consensus solved this democratic as well as this naive consensus, the issue we had. Cool. So, so we have discussed a lot. I guess we should just see transaction not in a layman term, but technically. So, so let's recall this analogy of the restaurant we used earlier and all the things we learned so far, and let's try to put like all these pieces together. Um, So let's see this simple transaction. If I, Gaurav, is sending 100 rupees to Parth, um, so first, what will I do is I'll have his public key. Okay, so just recall what public key was. It was Parth has two addresses, public and private. Public is like the mailbox, and private is like the key to the mailbox. So I'll send the money to his mailbox, and so Parth will. So during this transaction, what this blockchain will do, will verify that if I'm sending 100 Bitcoin, let's suppose 100 rupees. 100 बिटकॉइन तो मेरे पे वैसे ही नहीं होना कभी. So let's suppose I send 100 rupees to Parth. The blockchain will verify that if I already have that 100 rupees, we in the main there is a great thing about blockchain कि nobody can have debt. अगर आप पे पैसा नहीं है तो आप दे ही नहीं सकते, आप पे जितना है उतना ही दे सकते हो. So the whole blockchain will verify that, and they will send, if that is done, they will send that money to Parth, and the transaction will be validated. Many transactions across the world will happen, and what will then the miner will take all these transactions. He would have to do his share of work. He would have to like do some nonce and all those stuff we will discuss later. There is like, जैसे मैंने बोला था कि नाकामोटो कंसेंसस, जो ये माइनर है वो he'll do his work. So what work he does is he has to solve a riddle, a puzzle which will prove that that guy is legit. So basically that occurs, and after that, if the block is validated, that is added to the existing transaction. um, any doubts as of yet? um, कोई भी डाउट है तो like you can ask. You can, if we are presenting, you can like try to recall the doubt, and after we stop presenting you can unmute and ask anytime. Okay, cool, Parth, you can continue, I guess.
Okay, then I'll continue. Is my screen visible? Hello.
Yep, it's visible, bro.
So now we'll talk about Bitcoin mining, how to mine and stuff. So what is Bitcoin mining? Like Bitcoin का ऐसा कुछ खदान नहीं होती कि आप खदान में चले गए कुल्हाड़ी लेके और खोदने लग गए बिटकॉइन मिल गया, ऐसा नहीं रहता. फॉर एज गौरव सेड वी हैव टू सॉल्व सम कॉम्प्लेक्स हैश प्रॉब्लम, उसके बारे में करते हैं आगे बात. Bitcoin mining is like earn cryptocurrency after successful mining of blocks. You have to mine certain blocks which has some transactions so that you can earn Bitcoin. These blocks of transactions need to be verified. डबल स्पेंड अटैक से बचने के लिए आपको उन ट्रांजेक्शंस को वेरीफाई करना पड़ेगा. आगे स्लाइड में बात करते हैं उसके लिए. Involves solving complex hashing puzzle first, and this depends on how much computing power is being used. As Gaurav said, like we have to solve a complex hashing puzzle first, like it's a math problem or puzzle which we have to solve to arrive at a hash. Then अगर आप करेक्ट हैश पे आ गए या फिर उसके करेक्ट हैश के क्लोज आ गए तो देन यू हैव सॉल्व द ब्लॉक. और उसके लिए कितनी स्पीड लग रही है, कितना टाइम लगेगा आपको, आपके कंप्यूटिंग पावर पे डिपेंड करता है. So generally for mining you need either a GPU, graphic processing unit, or an application for specific integrated circuit, ASIC, in order to set up a mining rig. डबल स्पेंड अटैक जो गौरव ने पहले बात की थी उसका सोल्यूशन यहाँ पे होगा कि लाइक गौरव मेंशन कि माइनर्स इसको ठीक कर सकते हैं. हाउ दे डू इज लाइक माइनर्स गेट पेड फॉर देयर वर्क एज ऑडिटर्स. So what they do is they do the work of verifying the legitimacy of Bitcoin transactions. This convention is meant to keep Bitcoin users honest and was conceived by Bitcoin's founder Satoshi Nakamoto. Like whenever you mine, you mine a block, you verify certain transactions which come under that block. So like you have to check that if I have sent someone two bitcoins, I am not selling another same two bitcoins to another one. Like इसमें दिया फोटो में कि एक बायर है, वो सेलर ए को भी दो बिटकॉइन दे रहा है, सेलर बी को भी दो बिटकॉइन दे रहा है. इससे बचने के लिए बिटकॉइन माइनर्स जो होते हैं उन लोग को ट्रांजेक्शन वेरीफाई करना पड़ता है. और सतोशी नाकामोटो ने बताया था ताकि डबल स्पेंड ना हो. और सिंस ट्रांजेक्शन आर वैलिडेटेड डबल स्पेंड बॉर्डर्स नो मोर. अब माइनर ने ट्रांजेक्शन वेरीफाई कर लिया है तो अब डबल स्पेंड का खतरा चला गया है. नाउ the question comes to mind is like how to mine, how can I mine. So for that you have to be the first one to arrive at the correct answer, or to be the first one to come close to it. This process is also known as proof of work. So, what is this correct answer? Correct answer is like you have to come with some 64-digit hexadecimal number, a hash, which should be less than or equal to the target hash. As I said earlier, you have to solve some problem, some complex mathematical problem to arrive a hash. It should not be the the hash which you have arrived at should not be greater than target hash. बस उससे छोटा होना चाहिए और उस या तो उसके बराबर होना चाहिए. और to find this hash, complex mathematical problem needs to be solved. To mine successfully, you need to have a high hash rate, which again depends on your mining rig, which is measured in terms of gigahashes per second and terahashes per second. It depends on the power of your mining rig. Now, what is the reward for miners? Now, miners will be saying that भाई इतना काम कर रहा हूँ मैं, transaction verify कर रहा हूँ, what मैंने तो reward क्या रहेगा मेरा? So, when Bitcoin was first mined in 2009, mining one block would earn you 50 bitcoins. 2009 50 bitcoin मिलते थे एक block mine करने पे. अभी what the trend is like after every 4 years, the amount of reward is reduced to half. So in 2012 this was half 25 bitcoin. 2016 में फिर 12.5 bitcoin हो गया और now it is 6.25 bitcoin. And after 2024 most probably वो 3.125 BTC हो जाएगा. Now, tech required for mining. So, like, if you want to mine, then what is the mining setup? What rig do you need? So, for that, actually, what happens is like when you mine a block, it usually takes 10 minutes to mine one block in a blockchain network. Now, but as new technologies emerge daily, the computational speeds increase, and hence the time to solve complex hash problems decrease. अब मार्केट में क्या नए नए कंप्यूटर्स आ रहे हैं, नए नए रिग्स आ रहे हैं जो दे आर which are very powerful and can solve these problems very easily. So blockchain adjusts its difficulty and it like as the power increases in the market, it increases the difficulty as well. So as the time remains 10 minutes only. So you can say that every 2016 blocks, roughly every 2 weeks, the difficulty is increased. Uh, Now, if you think that you can manage a computer at home, then at today's network it is not possible. Earlier, when Bitcoin was founded, you would be able to do that, but abhi it is possible नहीं है, क्योंकि a personal computer mining for Bitcoin will almost certainly find nothing. So what miners do is rather than investing so huge amount in mining rig, they generally join a mining pool and combine power of their machines for mining, so that everyone gets benefited, and when the reward comes, they can distribute it. That's it. If anyone has any doubt, uh, they can ask.
Do we have any doubts?
Don't be shy, guys. You can ask. अगर mic में दिक्कत हो तो तुम chat box में भी डाल सकते हो.
Yep. Also, I have one more thing to show. So as discussed earlier, इसको मालूम नहीं है, then we will be learning. We'll be creating our own blockchain using e.build. Basically Ethereum का ही है. So इसमें क्या है कि हमको कोड करना नहीं, हमको बस जस्ट ड्रैग एंड ड्रॉप करना है, कॉन्सेप्ट वही है, and these things that you can see are functions. So also you can refer to this playlist. Do we have a playlist for this? I guess. Yep, you have a learn section over here. You can go there and you can learn this stuff. But we'll be covering this in our lectures. But if anyone wants to learn beforehand, you can go there. That's all. Also कोई doubts यार पूछ लो. We might not be perfect, but we can like try our best without
Also, guys, जब हम लोग ets.build यूज करेंगे और तुम लोग को ये बेसिक कॉन्सेप्ट में डाउट रहेगा, तो फिर दिक्कत रहेगी तुम लोग को वहाँ इम्प्लीमेंट करने में. तो पूछ लो कोई डाउट.
Okay, if no doubts, then thank you all for coming, for joining us. Paz, recording हो गई है ना?
हाँ हो गई है.
Cool, cool. Thanks all. Bye guys.
Bye, guys.
कल भी हो गई है क्लास इसकी ब्लॉकचेन की?
We'll think about that and we'll inform you in the group.
Yep.
ओके, श्योर.
Cool.
Bye, everyone.